I don't quite agree with the conventional business school, university definition of success. There's a single definition of success. Look at yourself in a mirror in the evening and wonder if you disappoint the person you were at 18, right before people get corrupted by life. Let him or her be the only judge. Not your reputation, not your wealth, not your standing in a community, not the decorations on your lapel. If you do not feel ashamed, then you are successful. All other definitions of success are modern constructions, fragile modern constructions. The ancient Greeks' definition of success was to have had a heroic death. But as we live in a less martial society, we can adapt our definition of success as having taken a heroic route for the benefits of the collective, as narrowly or broadly defined as you want, so long as it's someone else. For example, secret societies have the rule of uomo d'onore. You're as good as what you do to other members. So virtue is inseparable from courage. So you had to take some risks, personal, financial, whatever, for the sake of others. That's success. That's honor. It can be helping the local municipality, for example. I'm giving a hint here. But the more micro, the less abstract, the better. So success requires absence of fragility. I've seen billionaires terrified of journalists, wealthy people who felt crushed because their brother-in-law got very rich, academics with Nobel who were scared of comments on the web. The higher you go, the worse the fall. For almost all people I've met, external, not internal, success came with an increase in fragility and a heightened state of insecurity. The worst are those former something types with 4-page CVs who, after leaving office and addicted to the attention of servile bureaucrats, find themselves discarded. It's as if you went home one evening to discover that someone suddenly emptied your house of all its furniture. Self-respect, on the other hand, is robust. That's the approach of the Stoic school. I've seen robust people in my village, Amiens, who were proud of being, local citizens, liked by the community. They wake up happy and go to bed happy. Or Russian mathematicians who, during the difficult post-Soviet period, were proud of making $200 a month and did work that was appreciated by 20 people and considered that showing one's decorations or accepting awards, that was a sign of weakness and a lack of confidence in one's own contribution. And believe it or not, some wealthy people are robust, but you just don't hear about them because they're not socialized. They live next door and they drink Ara Baladi, not Veuve Clicquot. I was lucky to have a background closer to that of a classical Mediterranean or a medieval European before universities became commoditized. My parents had an account with Librairie Antoine in Bab Idris at the time, and a big library, and they bought a lot of books, but they didn't read the books, so they needed someone to read the books. So I was the person, who did the job, so they were happy with that. So I started valuing erudition over other attributes. But at the same time, I realized that what you learn in school is very narrow, so it's a waste of time to focus too much on school. I wanted initially to become a writer, and really, if your knowledge is limited to what happens in what you study in a baccalaureate, Lebanese baccalaureate, you're not going to go anywhere. So you need to be broader, and it takes time. So I skipped school most days, but read voraciously. And later, I find myself unable to concentrate on subjects that others imposed on me. So I separated schools for credentials from schools for one's own edification. I accidentally discovered probability theory and became obsessed with it. But as I said, it did not come from lofty philosophizing or scientific hunger, none of that. It was just the thrills and hormonal flush one gets while taking risks. A friend told me about complex derivatives, and I decided to make a career in them. It was a combination of trading and complex mathematics. The field was new and uncharted, and they were very, very difficult mathematically. So greed and fear were my teachers. So when there's the fire, you run very fast. So that was my method. I discovered that I hated fame. I hated famous people. I hated caviar. I hate champagne, complicated food, expensive wine, and mostly people who comment on wine, all right? So I like meze with local arak baladi. That's what I drink in New York, okay? And sabidish, squid ink, okay? Not complicated things. Instead of having my preferences dictated by norms of magazines for rich people. So my preferences became obvious to me one day when I was having dinner. I had dinner in a Michelin 3-star restaurant with complicated people, complicated wine and small complicated dishes. And after that, I went to Nick's Pizza and ate $6.95, the big thing of pizza for $6.95, and haven't had a single Michelin meal since, or anything with complex names or complex stuff. I'm particularly allergic to people who belong to the IAND, International Association of Name Droppers. If I had to relive my life, I'd be even more stubborn and more uncompromising than I have ever been. Okay, so let me tell you what I think is robust because I practice it. Number one, do not read newspapers. So do not follow the news in any way or form. To be convinced, go to the library and try to read last year's newspaper. Okay, and that will convince you. You should go from the news to the papers, not from a paper to more papers. If something is nonsense, you say it, and you say it out loud. You'll be harmed a little bit, but it'll be antifragile. In the long run, people who need to trust you will trust you. When I was still an obscure author, I walked out of a studio, Bloomberg Radio, because the interviewers they were saying nonsense, so I just walked out. People told me, you'll never have any coverage by Bloomberg ever again. I said, okay. 2 years later, they had a cover story on me. So if you see nonsense, say it and say it loud. Number one, treat the doorman with a lot of respect, okay, more than if you were the boss. The boss can go down, not the doorman. If something is boring, avoid it. Except, of course, taxes and visits to your mother-in-law, okay? Other than these, avoid everything boring. And there are a lot of rules in my book, so I'm gonna end up with no-nos. The things to avoid completely. Muscles without strength. Friendship without trust. Opinion without risk. Change without aesthetics. Age without values. Food without nourishment. Power without fairness. Facts without rigor. Degrees without erudition. Militarism without fortitude. Progress without civilization, complication without depth, fluency without content, and most of all, religion without tolerance. Thank you.
Friends, this was dense and deep. I'll share my top takeaways from this speech, and I would love to read your takeaways in the comments below. Nassim says that if you look in the mirror and your 18-year-old self is not ashamed of your present self, you are successful. Notice he didn't say if you are proud, not ashamed. While this looks like Manker's inversion, Taleb is actually practicing Via Negativa. He is stripping away the fragile modern constructions of success to find what remains, a core of self-respect that cannot be shaken. He asked how to be unsuccessful. If I feel ashamed of myself, I am not successful, no matter how famous I am, no matter how rich I am, or how many degrees I have. These things don't matter. These are external. They are modern definitions of success and make you fragile. We want our success to be robust. So, what kind of success is robust? If I am not ashamed of myself, of what I have become, I am successful. And that success is robust because it is internal. It does not depend on external things like fame or wealth. Only your own actions can take that success away. But you control your actions. So it is up to you to keep it or lose it. But the judge cannot be my present self. He is corrupted. The true judge is my 18-year-old self, the self uncorrupted by life. Do you live your life like your 18-year-old past self would want? Or did you sacrifice your moral guides to get a promotion, a better job, or to make more money? In ancient Greece, success was to have a heroic death. The soldier who died in the battle didn't live to see his success recognized by others. It didn't matter to him. Recognition was not the reason he did it. He did it because it was right. He had an inner compass that guided him. So, our 18-year-old past self is our own guide, our own compass, and we can ignore everything else. So, how do we live so our 18-year-old self won't be ashamed? Taleb gives us clear guidance. Take risks for others, not yourself, just like the soldiers in ancient Greece. He calls this virtue inseparable from courage. Success means taking personal, financial, or reputational risks for the benefit of the collective, whether that's your local community, your friends, or society. The key is, it must be for someone else. This is what he calls honor. We must live an honorable life. He also talks about knowledge, real knowledge. He read voraciously, as he said. He read across disciplines. He did that because he noticed he could become rich by trading the market if he did it right. But he could also be wiped out if he did it wrong. Fear and greed were his teachers. He had skin in the game, so he got robust knowledge. He made it. It is something Charlie Munger also talks about. Let's listen to him explain that.
I frequently tell the story of Max Planck when he won the Nobel Prize and went around Germany giving lectures on quantum mechanics. And the chauffeur gradually memorized the lecture, and he said, "Would you mind, Professor Planck, just because it's so boring to stay on our routines, would you mind if I gave the lecture this time and you just sat in front, my chauffeur sat?" And Planck said, "Sure," and the chauffeur got up and he gave this long lecture on quantum mechanics, and after which a physics professor stood up in the rear and asked a perfectly ghastly question. And the chauffeur said, "Well," he says, "I'm surprised that in an advanced city like Munich, I get such an elementary question. I'm going to ask my chauffeur to reply." Well, the reason I tell that story is not entirely to celebrate the quick-wittedness of the protagonist. In this world, we have two kinds of knowledge. One is Planck knowledge, the people who really know. They've paid the dues, they have the aptitude. And then we got chauffeur knowledge. They have learned to prattle the talk. And they have a big head of hair, they may have fine timbre in the voice, they make a hell of an impression. But in the end, they've got chauffeur knowledge.
Munger says, don't fall for the empty chauffeur knowledge that many universities offer. Forget about degrees. Build real knowledge. Both Munger and Taleb agree on that. Real knowledge will make you robust. Taleb ends the talk again with Via Negativa. He says, remove fragile things from your life and you will be more robust.
The things to avoid completely. Muscles without strength. Friendship without trust. Opinion without risk. Change without aesthetics. Age without values. Food without nourishment. Power without fairness. Facts without rigor. Degrees without erudition. Militarism without fortitude. Progress without civilization. Complication without depth. Fluency without content. And most of all, religion without tolerance. Thank you.
Brilliant. Each of these are so dense that can be a topic for another video. If you enjoyed this video, I think you will also like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.